The Straw Hats arrive at Duval's base noticing how quiet it is. They then find Kami's fishman friend in a cage, only to recognize him as Hatchan, a former member of Arlong's crew. Luffy refuses to help him, so Kami and Papagu try to rescue their friend on their own but are quickly captured by macro fishmen pirates. The Straw Hats then decide to help, only to spring the trap Duval had planned for them. The Flying Fish Riders launch their attack on the Straw Hats, and when Luffy tries riding one of them, he ends up underwater. Meanwhile, Hachi is freed by Zoro, who hasn't fully healed from Thriller Bark. Luffy's second attempt at riding a flying fish sees him crash into Duval's room where he sees him without his helmet. During a brief fight with Luffy, Duval appears before the other Straw Hats, where he announces that the man he wants to kill is Sanji, who has no idea who he is. Luffy then knocks his helmet off, revealing that he looks just like Sanji's wanted poster. Duval reveals that he was once a small-time bandit until Sanji's wanted poster came to light. Since then, he hid his face with the iron mask until he would get revenge on Sanji. He then uses steel nets to nearly drown Sanji, until Kami saves him. And with that, Sanji deals a fatal kick combo at Duval's face. Meanwhile, the Flying Fish Riders attempt to crush the Thousand Sunny, but with the newly installed Jaian cannon, they are quickly defeated. With the Flying Fish Riders taken care of, the Straw Hats rest as Hatchan treats them to the promised takoyaki. Duval shows up again, not for revenge, but to thank Sanji since his kicks altered Duval's face to become handsome and suave. To make up for the trouble he's caused, he leaves his snail phone number with the Straw Hats in case they may need his assistance before departing with the newly christened Rosy Life Riders. The Sunny sets sail for the Sabaody Archipelago, the stepping stone to Fishman Island. Hatchan explains that one needs to have their ship coated with a bubble resin in order to travel underwater. And once they reach Sabaody, he promises to find them a ship coater that he trusts. He also warns them that the world nobility will be on the island, and no matter what happens, not to touch them, even if they witness a murder. After landing on the Sabaody Archipelago, the Straw Hats begin searching for a man Hatchan knows who can coat their ship so they can continue on to Fishman Island. Usopp and Frankie stay behind to make repairs, and Sanji stays as well to guard the treasure for Nami. Hachi tells the Straw Hats that the world nobles are also known as the Celestial Dragons and that they wear masks so that they don't breathe the same air as the common people. He also tells them that Sabaody is crawling with famous pirates, bounty hunters, and slave traders. Luffy notices a wound on Hachi's head, to which Hachi tells them not to mind it and also to treat Kami and himself like humans. They then run into a runaway slave who is begging for someone to take off his collar. He tries to take it off himself only for the collar to explode. The Celestial Dragons come to the scene and Hachi tells Luffy and the others to get on their knees as they start kicking and torturing the dead slave, and Luffy struggles to not interfere. Papagu reveals the world nobles to be the descendants of the creators of the world government, and harming them is an act of war. Luffy and his group defeat some bounty hunters who were attempting to capture them. Later, they meet up with Hatchan's old friend, Shucky, while she was busy beating up two guys who didn't pay up. Shucky tells the gang that Luffy and Zoro are part of the 11 Supernovas, rookie pirates with over 100 million berry bounties on their heads. She also mentions her mysterious friend, the coding mechanic, who is stronger than all 11 Supernovas put together. Luffy's group begins to look for Rayleigh and spend most of the day enjoying themselves, even fulfilling Kami's dream of riding the Ferris wheel. However, unbeknownst to them, a bounty hunter named Peterman is tailing them, having gotten info that Kami is a mermaid from the bounty hunters that Luffy's group previously encountered. Meanwhile, on another part of the island, St. Charlos, another world noble, shoots an injured man that doctors were trying to bring into a hospital simply because the man was in his way. St. Charlos then proceeds to take the nurse who was with the injured man for his wife, shooting her fiancé when he objects. Zoro, who stumbles upon the scene, unintentionally angers Charlos for walking in his path, which causes Charlos to fire his gun, but Zoro immediately dodges and goes to counterattack. However, Bonnie stops the attack in order to ensure that an admiral will not come to the island. Back at the Sunny, Sanji, Usopp and Frankie receive an urgent call from Chopper stating that Cammy has been kidnapped and Luffy's group doesn't know where to look for her due to the size of the island. Sanji tells them to stand by, explaining that he will call the Rosy Life Riders. Duval and his crew arrive on the archipelago and start gathering the straw hats up to bring them to the human auction house, where the kidnappers have brought Cammy. Robin tells Nami why the fishmen and merfolk are not welcome on the island, as in the past they had been discriminated against and classified as just fish. At the auction house itself, Saint Roseward and Saint Cherulia arrive complaining that Saint Charlos is late. Trafalgar Law, Eustace Kid, and their crews are already present, while in the backstage, Cammy and the other humans are all located there, including the coding mechanic, Silver's Rayleigh, former first mate of Gold Roger himself. The human auction finally begins, and it is only then that the Straw Hats discovered that their mermaid friend is being sold off at Grove 1. After they meet there, aside for Zoro, Luffy, Brook, and Robin, their initial plan to extract Cammy is thwarted upon learning that the world government and the Celestial Dragons are involved in the slave trade, so Nami decides that they'll buy Cammy back in the auction itself. Meanwhile, the rest of the archipelago receives news that the world government is going to execute the captured Ace. A move that could provoke a war with Whitebeard. The auction continues, but Saint Charlos arrives and ruins the Straw Hats' plan to buy Cammy back by placing an exorbitant bid on her. The proceedings are then interrupted when Luffy and his flying fish crash into the auction house, but he is restrained from rushing the stage by Hatchan, who accidentally reveals his fishman nature in the process. While the nobility recoils in disgust, Charlos shoots him, gloating about obtaining a fishman slave. Luffy snaps and punches Charlos in the face despite everyone around him trying to convince him not to. After Charlos is slammed against the wall, the guards begin to attack the Straw Hats, and most of the observers, except for Charlos' family and Kid and Law's crews, who evacuate. The Straw Hats fight the guards as Robin, Brook and Usopp arrive to help, with Usopp accidentally knocking Roseward unconscious as he falls through the roof, and work to save Cammy. The Navy alerted to Luffy attacking Charlos and surround the auction house. An infuriated Shauria attempts to kill Cammy but is knocked out by a sudden burst of haki from Rayleigh, who emerges from backstage and reveals himself to Luffy. News of the attack on the world nobles reaches the pirates in the town, as well as the Navy headquarters, where Kizaru decides to go to the island in order to deal with the situation. Don Quixote da Flamingo, who owns the auction house, tells Disco that the 7 warlords will be called to war against the Whitebeard pirates. Rayleigh introduces himself to the Straw Hats, frees Cammy from her collar, and notes that he is the coding engineer that they have been looking for. Luffy, Kid and Law go out to fight the Navy, who are no match for their devil fruit abilities. Their crews join the fight, defeat the rest of the Navy outside the auction house, promising to meet and fight in the New World. As Luffy's crew escapes with the help of the Rosy Life Riders, a mysterious figure that appears to be Kuma intercepts Kid and Law, then begins attacking them with lasers. Upon arriving back at Shaki's bar, Rayleigh reveals to the Straw Hats that he was first mate to the legendary Gold Roger and the truth to his crew's dismissal. Thus they leave soon after with a bit of Rayleigh's Vivricard for each of them, and he tells them to come back in 3 days when their ship will be ready. Meanwhile, Admiral Kizaru arrives at the archipelago and demonstrates his mysterious light abilities before taking on the supernova Basil Hawkins, while Urich and Drake fight a pacifista. Kid and Law continue their bout with another pacifista, while the Straw Hat pirates come face to face with a third one, while a shady figure with a giant broadaxe is seen at the end, waiting for a call. The Straw Hat pirates fight against one of the pacifistas, and while it does not have Kuma's devil fruit powers, it is still able to withstand their strongest attacks while firing devastating lasers at the crew. Elsewhere on the archipelago, Kizaru easily defeats Hawkins, Urich, Drake and Apug before Sentomaru contacts him. The situation for the Straw Hats grows more desperate as Zoro suffers pain from his wound. The Straw Hats combine their strongest attacks to defeat the pacifista, but are exhausted after the battle. Sentomaru arrives with another pacifista, and Luffy attempts to escape, dividing the Straw Hats into 3 groups. Unfortunately, Sentomaru intercepts his group, the pacifista cuts off Sanji's group, and Kizaru attacks Zoro's group, knocking him down and preparing to finish him off. Usopp and Brook's attempts to attack Kizaru fail, but Rayleigh arrives, managing to block his attack and hold him off. Luffy orders his crew to retreat, declaring the enemies impossible for them to defeat at this time, but Sentomaru and the other pacifista bar their escape, and even Chopper's monster form is unable to turn the situation to their advantage. The real Kuma arrives and uses his devil fruit powers to make Zoro disappear. Sentomaru reveals that Kuma has the ability to make people fly through the sky to faraway places. Kuma uses his ability to make the other pacifista and the rest of the Straw Hats disappear as well. While Luffy struggles desperately to protect them and Rayleigh is occupied dealing with Kizaru. Kuma tells Rayleigh something that he is reluctant to believe before teleporting a despairing Luffy away, completely defeating the Straw Hats.